Good morning, Chairman Waxman, Ranking Member Davis, and members of the committee. Carol and I would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide you information on the treatment of our son, Master Sergeant James C. Coons. There is nothing that can be done to help Jimmy now. However, with our information and that of the others present here today, change can and must be made in hopes of providing the proper care for our returning heroes so they may enjoy a healthy and productive life. Our story. Thursday, February 13th, 2003. Don't sweat the small stuff. This is my life. I am a soldier. With that comes an inherent amount of responsibility and self-sacrifice. All of my adult life has been spent as a soldier. I knew many years ago what I was getting myself into. I would not change anything. Yep, I'm dog-tired and my body hurts, but there's not another place on the face of the planet Earth that I want to be right now. What I do now is not for me. It's about the American flag. Some folks don't have a clue. They curse it, they spit at it, they burn it. Well, one day I will be buried with and under it. This is my generation's war, and if you are a soldier, then it's your profession, the profession of arms. Now rest easy and tell everyone not to worry. I will find my way home again one day. These words were from my son, a United States soldier, a proud soldier who loved his country, his God, and then his family. Master Sergeant James Curtis Coons was a true soldier through and through all of his life. At a very early age, he was fascinated with anything military. Past a truck hauling a tank or any military equipment, he would get excited. Drive by the port of Beaumont, and he would have to stop so he could watch the gear being loaded for overseas shipments. Past an Army surplus store, well, we had to stop. Who would think a 5-year-old kid would eat sea rations? He had to have a parachute hung above his bed. He took the harness off of it and tried to jump out of a small tree. Well, he did, and we had to cut him out of it. Our son James was born on April 3rd, 1968, in a small town in Texas. He died in July 2003 under the care of Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C. 35-year-old, a military man happily married to a wonderful wife who had 2 beautiful daughters. 16 years of military service on a fast track for promotion and slated to attend Sergeant Major's Academy in Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas in August 2003. What happened to my son? Does anyone really know? We begin to wonder, and I wonder why. If they know, won't they tell us? What we did know is this. Jimmy was doing his tour of duty in Iraq. He was always rock steady. He was strong-willed and a good spirit all of his life. But in April, May of 2003, his emails and phone calls from Iraq took on a completely different tone, a tone that alarmed us. On June 12, 2003, in an email to his mother, he said, "This place has really put a beating on me. I found myself struggling to understand and deal with my own personal demons. I don't know what started this downward fall I'm in. I'm just ready to come home. I love you, Jimmy." This was the time he started complaining about not sleeping and seeing images of a dead soldier he had seen in the morgue. For some unknown reason, that image remained burnt in his mind, an image he saw over and over again in his sleep and would wake him. He sought help for the fatigue and anxiety he was experiencing and was only given medication. No one counseled him. No one sought to find out the underlying reason. Just take these sleeping pills, no follow-up, no more concern, just another soldier with a sleep disorder. No one cared enough to find out why. The medicine did not help. On June 17, 2003, James called his OIC and asked for help. Captain Singleton and another soldier raced to his quarters, where they had to break in to find him lying semi-conscious. He was then rushed to a medical facility at Camp Doha for evaluation and treatment. He was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. During his 3-day stay at the medical facility, he was unwilling to discuss his situation with medical staff. On June 21, 2003, he arrived in Landstuhl as an outpatient. He left on a medevac flight on June 29, 2003, arriving at Walter Reed Army Medical Center sometime around June 30th of 2003. He was evaluated upon his arrival, and the evaluation did not find that he was a threat to himself or others. He had a scheduled appointment the next day and was released to his own custody with instruction to follow up at the outpatient clinic. He was sent to his room alone, had appointments set up. He never made one of those appointments. No one ever made an attempt, even after our calls, to check on him. Records indicate that James checked into his room at the Malone house. He never left his room again. The next 4 to 5 days were a total nightmare. Carol and my daughter-in-law began calling Walter Reed the next day, trying to find Jimmy. We have documentation of repeated calls to various departments trying to verify that Master Sergeant Coons had arrived at Walter Reed. No luck. No one had any information. They did have a room registered to a Master Sergeant James Coons, but no one could tell us if he was actually on the property. During this time, we were told that this is a holiday weekend and it would be difficult to get someone to check his room. Policy will not let us go into the room until 3 days if there is a do not disturb sign on the door. I have since found in part of the investigation papers a letter from Base Commander Kiley saying that rooms will be entered daily to check on the well-being of guests. It's not dated, so I don't know if this was prior to James or afterwards. We were passed around and around. A call to the hospital's clergy. A captain told us, "He's a senior non-commissioned officer. I cannot get into his business." Calls to the military police, and no one responded to us. Finally, on July 4th, someone took our call seriously and went to check his room. We were still calling, and now we're really getting the runaround. They know something, they say, but they can't tell us until the Army officially notifies his wife. Well, thank God a worker at the Malone house finally had enough compassion to tell my wife on the night of 4th of July that James had passed away. The next day, my daughter-in-law was notified of Jimmy's death at approximately 06:30, and we were notified around 9 a.m. Now the story gets interesting. Our casualty officer was not informed of the cause of death, and we were not being told the cause of death either. We would not learn of it until after Jimmy had been buried. That's not quite true. We learned about it the day before we buried Jimmy. No matter what we did, we were met by a stone wall. One bureaucrat or officer after another would either say they did not know or would pass us to someone else who in turn would pass us on to another person. No one, it seemed, knew or were willing to tell us the actual cause of our son's death. We are to this day still unsure of his actual date of death. James' body was returned to us on July 13, 2003 and was buried on July 15, 2003. During the visitation on Monday, July 14th, the funeral home received a call from a retired colonel in the area saying that he had knowledge of how my son had died and he was on his way to the funeral home to inform the family. Our casualty officer, who still had not seen a death certificate, got a copy of the death certificate faxed to him, and he had the unfortunate task of taking me outside, telling me how my son died. I then had to gather my family into a room and tell them how James died. We, Carol and I, are here today to relate our experience to you in hopes that some other soldier who's having problems won't be ignored, that he or she will be given the best care and treatment available. This is a great country. It's the greatest asset is our men and women in uniform. They deserve, and we expect, that they would receive the absolute best medical care this country can provide to its service people, to whom those parents have entrusted their children, and to whom this country turns to for protecting us and our country's values in times of need. Don't sweep these people under the rug. Out of sight, out of mind, not my problem. That's just not acceptable. They deserve so very much more. We, the parents who entrust our children to you, deserve more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coons. Mrs. Coons, did you want to add anything, or was your husband speaking for both of you? Okay, thank you. Ms. LeConte?